Judyth Brown.
In the flesh.
What's going down?
Yeah.
All right. So, I kind of wanted to talk to you today, because you're a person that's older.
Mm-hmm. You calling me old? Is that what you're doing? That's
Yeah.
okay. It's fine. I am.
And in a place that someday I would want to be at. Still, not only kicking it, but cranking it seriously hard, in seriously cool ways. So I just want to kind of, I don't know, just talk,
Just
and
hang out.
hang out on this couch next to this jukebox.
So you want to hear my life story? Do you want to talk about wild and esoteric things?
So last time we had a conversation, we talked about excellence and achieving excellence. And so I think it's one thing that when I try and start something, or I'm getting good at something, or want to do something, it's got to be excellent. But I'm not good at it yet. So it's just keep going. But then when I get good at it and get a taste of excellence, then it's I don't know.
So I think the thing that you call excellence is something that I would call mastery.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, yes.
Yeah. So you may master something to the best of your ability, and still not produce something that's considered excellent in some objective way.
Yeah.
And I think that part of what I'm going to start with here is the notion that, because I have a lot of time teaching, not in the public schools, more in the community, and the thing that you have to understand is that in order to achieve that sense of mastery, that almost intuitive ability to, whether it's skateboarding or framing a shot or whatever it is you're doing, frying an egg, it has to integrate into your mind in a particular way, and it has to have enough time and enough exposure in the right ways to make that mastery happen. Now, that's where I got a lot of people to start with got to do something 10,000 times before you're really good at it. And repetition is definitely part of it. But the other parts of it, and the parts that people don't talk about much, are the contemplative side of it. As you encounter any kind of experience or skill, it changes the way you think. You're never going to be the person, again, who never tried it. And as you go through the process of doing this over and over again, you discover things about that experience in and of itself that relate to the experience, like, oh, if I hold my hand this way, very technical things. But it also actually changes the way your brain works. And that process needs time. That needs to be encouraged and fostered, and when that flourishes, that change in perception, it changes. You acquire not just an ability or mastery of a set of skills, but you change how your brain actually works, how you see the world.
Yeah.
And what happens very often with people is, I wanted to do this thing, and they achieve it, and then they're dissatisfied.
Yeah.
Why are they dissatisfied?
So that's kind of what I was.
Yeah, it's because their brain has been changed. Their whole perception, the zeitgeist of their life, has been changed by the experience of achieving mastery.
Yeah, it's crazy because in the process of mastery, you ruin a process, and you create another one.
Exactly.
It's like, oh, this isn't what I thought it was gonna be. And it's almost like if you wanna it's definitely a.
So that experience.
It's an interesting road.
If it's boring, don't put me on that road, because I'm gonna just be.
Well, here's how I relate to skating, and it's so funny because now I've gotten to such a high level where I started skating, right, and it was gonna be like so fun, and I was gonna get good, and then I was gonna have a lot of friends, and then yes, that happened, but I have too many people that want to talk to me. One, sometimes when I want to just skate, and then second, when I just like want to rip so hard. Sometimes people are intimidated by it and they don't want to skate with me. And then I'm like, wait, the whole point of getting good was I want to like skate with everybody, like be, and then it's just like sometimes feels so counterintuitive and you have to take on this other like weird role.
Well, it's only weird because you didn't expect it to happen.
Yeah.
You know, it is the natural evolution of a master. You have needs that a novice doesn't have. Just doesn't have.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, it's interesting.
And the desires you had as a novice are long since ago fulfilled. I mean, that's fine. But now as you've achieved mastery, your role in the community, your needs as a practitioner, your ability to interact with people and their need to interact with you, all of it changes.
Yeah.
And it's like there's the oh shit moment of
I'm not saying I'm a master skater. Calm down.
Oh yeah. You could be.
No, it's okay.
But even if you're not a master skater, you're not sitting in the ashram, with your om going. It's the point is that you are no longer the novice. You are barely the journeyman anymore, and the mastery that in art, okay, the apprentice program or the apprentice process that was. Still is a part of most artistic endeavors is that you enter as an apprentice, you follow along, you pay your dues, you sweep the floor, you do all that sort of stuff, and you observe. And then as you become skilled in the craft, you become a journeyman. Mastery is not the end. It's actually a new beginning.
Oh, Jesus.
Talk to him about that because man, that was rough.
No, that's interesting. Yeah.
In the martial arts, the black belt is considered your gateway to actually learning the art. So yeah, the part that they don't tell you when you're a little pisser, just getting started is this is way harder and way longer and will change you in ways you had no idea about. By the time you get to the end of the line, standing in the training hall, you're just getting started again. You're a white belt again.
Yeah, and it's just cyclical.
But in order to become the person you to fully develop the person that is inherent in you, these cycles are absolutely necessary, and they're progressive cycles. They're not. I started.
Yeah. It feels like it though sometimes.
Does feel familiar, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You get to the point where you go, "Have I been here again?" Jeez.
Here we go again.
But it is the sooner you adapt to the notion that here I go again.
Yeah. Is
actually a new rising. Great. If you think you're never going to see this area, this part of life again, think twice.
Yeah.
Or maybe just go take a nap somewhere because you need to just chill. But that cyclical rise is part of the human experience.
Yeah.
So mastery is a beginning.
Yeah. So what have you tried to master? What were the things that you were in college trying to get really, really good at stuff?
So
what were you trying to get good at?
Interestingly, for me, it was scene painting.
Painting.
Yeah, I started out as an actor. I took my first acting class. I think it was 11.
Mm-hmm.
Thereabouts. Little kid, just doing whatever, because I thought acting was cool.
Yeah.
And there too, every time you get to a new level, you have to start again and all of that. And I got to a point where I found, this is one of those things that happens and you go, this didn't really happen. No, it really did. I was in the middle of an audition, and it hit me that I didn't want to continue with this.
Mm-hmm.
I was at Virginia Commonwealth University, and I'd been there. I'd been to SUNY Purchase for a couple of years. Took a couple of years painting scenery in the hills of Virginia. Came back to Virginia Commonwealth, and there was just something in me that turned off. I wanted nothing to do with acting ever again.
Interesting.
In the middle of an audition, it's a little weird. It was like I opened my mouth, I got halfway through my piece, I went, "Oh shit," and walked out. It's like, "Thank you," and left. And they all looked at me like, "What happened to her?" And it's like, "No,
really?
Oh no, seriously." The
Fun.
epiphany went off, and
That's funny.
Oh yeah, but I had been painting. I'd been painting sets for 2 or 3 years at that point. And I was primarily self-taught because I went to, I left school, which was a story in and of itself.
Oof, I get that.
I bet you do.
Oh yeah.
It's and I lived in New York for a while. Worked in a little off Broadway house and got a day job.
Nice.
Then they had the League of Resident Theaters was auditioning, and I was looking for techies. And one particular one in Virginia wanted an apprentice. Well, that meant that they could exploit your labor and pay you nothing. But I was, 20, 21 years old, and I went and did it. And I learned to mix pigment from ground mineral. Right?
Yeah.
Which is almost unheard of.
Yeah.
Of course, the binder is horse glue, so that was rough.
Yeah.
It was 110 degrees in the shop, and you mix a gallon, a 20-gallon garbage can of horse glue. By Thursday, that sucker's ripe. But I learned to literally feel pigment and know what I was getting in terms of like coverage and how many layers I could put all over something. So,
damn. Yeah. You really went at this hardcore. That's interesting. That's so funny. Because, like, I feel like there's a different level of sometimes effort that people put into learning something new. And, like, you get out what you put in. So, like, I assume you got a lot out of art and a lot out of painting. Totally. But, like, it's because you went full blast. Like, how many people, when they start painting, get apprenticeships, like, and are mixing horse pigment or whatever.
And you know what's really funny about that?
Mineral pigment and horse glue.
Yeah, it was mineral pigment. We actually went down. You'll think this is funny. You've heard of earth colors, earth tones?
Yeah.
Yeah, we ran out of them. So
a couple earth tones.
There you go. We literally went down to the creek and dug up mud. There's a stink you never want to smell in your entire life. And dried it and ground it and sieved it and used it to paint. But I didn't go looking for that. And I think that's an interesting side of this because these things found me. If I had talked to you 5 years prior and given you, you know how people always say, "Hey, what do you want to be when you grow up?"
I think that's how you know you're on the right path, though. Is that when you're like mixing the horse pigment, and you're like, "What am I doing here?" You're like, "I guess I really like this." Like,
oh no,
or you're not even thinking that. You're
there's
just
not
like,
even times you like it. Sometimes it's like, oh god.
It's not even like or dislike. It's almost just like sometimes by the end of it, you're like, "What was that?" Like,
right?
And then it's just like, I guess this is what this is what I'm doing.
Well, but I think that determinism of this is what I'm going to do and I'm going to go hardcore.
Yeah.
I had none of that to begin with. By the time...
That's so funny, because then sometimes you always assume that's how you should start things sometimes as a person that wants to be a master, as a person that wants to be high level.
And sometimes the opportunities presented to you have nothing to do with that path. Or nothing to do with your perceived path.
Yeah.
I needed a job that got me out of Manhattan. I was working for a toy company. Again, something is a long story. And I needed to get back into theater. So this was an opportunity for me to get the hell out of Manhattan.
Yeah.
And it got me out into Southwest Virginia, 15 miles from God and the Tennessee border.
Yeah.
I had no clue what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And so let me dial this back too.
Okay.
I am a person with ADD
Oh yeah,
for sure. Right? Does that show you?
look at there.
But I didn't discover that. First of all, they didn't diagnose this when I was a kid. They just didn't. You were a bad person. You had to pay better attention. You get whipped for not doing your homework because you were distracted by whatever. I didn't even hear the term executive function disorder until I was nearly 60.
Mm-hmm.
And my family member who used it to talk about another family member, and the light bulb when I started reading as much as I could. It's like, that's what this is. I can't hold a job. I don't know what the hell I'm doing on any given time. But I also develop hyperfocus.
Yeah.
And that hyperfocus.
It's interesting. It's like hyper unfocus and then hyper funnel focus. Sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's just like, sometimes I feel like the challenge of my life is being like a cool, like, I want to be a cool 7, man. Like,
yeah.
How do you do? Who is that?
A cool 7?
Yeah, like, how do you do that? Like, who? But I know people like that. But I'm just like, with stuff. It's either like all over a million things or like pinpoint focus for hours.
Sure, and in a lot of ways, working with what you've got is, I think, the key to any sort of mastery.
Yeah.
Because you're probably not going to do Bach, right, on the violin.
Yeah.
Because it takes so much intense focus for so long. But if you happen to love Bach and you have ADHD or you have that executive function disorder, you might just like skip meals and master the entire thing.
It's executive function disorder.
It's the family of it's a family of conditions that ADHD or ADD is part of. So that whole business and you should definitely look that up. It's totally it makes it when people say ADD or ADHD, I don't get the hyper part of this. I tend to be more depressive, withdrawn, anxious, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it's more anxious, I think.
I didn't know what anxiety was until I was 45. What the hell, man?
Yeah.
Somebody want to give me a book and explain this? Yeah. No? Okay, fine.
It just seems like bullshit until you actually know what it is, too.
Or it seems like a moral failing.
Yeah. No, and it seems like a failure. Yeah, it seems like you're a failure. So you figured something's just wrong, figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah, and the reality is your brain is wired differently than a neuronormative person. I'm doing quotey fingers. I don't know if it's going to show anywhere. But a neuronormative person has, yes, they may feel anxiety, but it's rooted in something. They may be depressed, but it's causal. They may understand feeling scattered, but usually they can do something to pull themselves back out of it. All of those little planners they give you. And, this is the solution. No, it's not. No.
I was actually never diagnosed. I never, even now, never, tried to go and get a diagnosis or even pinpoint anything down. But I just figure I'm working with what I got at this point.
Absolutely. What is the choice you have, right?
And that seems like the best thing to be doing. And, my favorite thing with Ram Dass is do you know who Ram Dass is?
Yes, I do.
Perfect. He said, I haven't gained or lost any of my neuroses. I'm the same person. I've just figured out how to deal with myself.
How to deal with them. Exactly. So when you come down to mastery, I think the mastery that really is the most important one is mastering yourself. It is not permanent by any means.
Yeah.
Because that cyclical evolution takes place as you understand yourself as well.
Yeah. So, and seems like the things that you do are just a product of mastering yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How much can you get out of your own way and how much can you just do what you're doing?
And what motivates you?
Yeah.
It's like there are people who are definitely...
genuinely knowing yourself, going for what you want.
There are people who are definitely motivated by manipulating other people.
Yeah, I used to be like that. Well, it's not like manipulating other people, but you just figure out one way of getting what you want. And it's like, okay, then they tell you, what do you they tell you the things you should want, like money
Uh,
and like a big house, and then so you're like, okay, well, if I can't get them from like, holding a job,
mm-hmm.
then I can try and get them these other ways. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that there's something to be said about uh, yes, you know yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you know that you share some values with the overall society, and you don't share other values. The ability to relate to the values that other people have is absolutely clutch.
Yeah.
But you don't have to possess, you don't have to be possessed of those values. You want to make money? Hey, fantastic. There's a bajillion ways to make money.
And it seems like to master things and to get a lot of things, you need to manipulate, but you actually don't. You need to work with a lot of the shit that's around you.
So manipulate is a word that I always found interesting because it gets a bad rap.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, me too.
To shape with the hands.
Yeah,
to manipulate.
Yeah.
Well, if you work with something, you are manipulating it.
Mm-hmm.
If you work with people, it's a mutual manipulation.
Yes.
You are using each other to your mutual benefit.
Yeah.
And a happy result should be friendship and profit and satisfaction and love, and those are all positive results of that human interaction that some people call manipulation.
Mm-hmm.
If what you get is to seek advantage, do harm, all that sort of stuff, it's a negative side of that. But manipulation in and of itself, so what?
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean that what people want it to mean.
Yeah.
Oh, you're manipulating me. No shit, Sherlock. You have cake. I don't.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, guess what? We can be friends, right? How about sharing some of that cake?
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you that you having less cake and me having more is actually good for both of us.
I did sales for a while.
Oh, God bless you.
And it was like one of the hardest things because I'm like really good at talking to people, but I also like at the time was like getting into like psychedelics and stuff. Mm-hmm. So it was like this whole like juxtaposition of like, I was just like, yeah, like, but we're selling good products too. So I was like, no, but like you need a roof, but like, trust me, like you don't want to buy this one. Like it's too expensive. So I was like, almost like, but I was like, please, like you have to do the appointment or I'm not going to make any money. Like, but, but please, like, so it was this whole thing of like,
did they ever teach you, persuasive techniques?
Yeah, and I can like pull them off, right? Like I can get into that like, hey, Miss Brown, how you doing today? All right, I sense you, and like just take over the conversation. Yes questions, like all of like I got everything. I was the person teaching those concepts, so it was like. But then at the same time, I'm going home and listening to Ram Dass. I'm listening to, Joe Rogan talk with, all these people about ayahuasca and all this stuff. And I'm just like, 19, I'm like, none of this fucking makes sense. It's like, I go to work and everybody's telling me, like, leads at all costs, like money, oh, you have this problem, money will solve it, leads will solve it. You get an office, become a manager, this will all be solved. Mm-hmm. And then it's like, my true heart's like, no, like, not it. Like, not it.
Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. So where did painting? We just got off on so many tangents.
Oh my God, yes. Well, that's fine. That's perfectly fine. Listen, two ADD people talking to each other. So much fun. What do you expect? So painting. I started painting in Virginia.
How far did painting take you? Sorry to cut you off.
Oh, it's fine. It took me. I went to VCU. I formally studied scene painting. Okay. Which was kind of fun because then they taught me about acrylics and it's like, what? But at any rate, so I was painting locally and I met, and of course, the day job or the night job in this case, I was tending bar, I was going to school, all that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. And I met the man that I married. And what happened there was that painting became kind of a secondary thing to the development of a family. Because we decided, he was a computer programmer.
Were you working as an artist?
I was.
Really?
Off and on.
Were you a starving artist?
Well, no, I was married to a guy who was coding back in the 80s.
Oh, beast.
We were fine.
Wait, when did you get together?
86.
How old were you?
No, I'm lying. So we got married in my oldest daughter was born in 84, so we were married in 82.
Mm-hmm.
So, what was the question? What did you say?
How old are you?
how 67.
No. How old were you when you married?
Oh, geez, you want all this math? What is this?
No,
I was born in 56.
Sorry. Why
Okay.
do people your age like mark shit by year?
Because we don't remember crap.
Yeah, it was 67. Like, how is that easier to remember than how old you were? Like,
totally, because
I was just like, yeah, I was like 14 or 15. Like,
well, some people that's fine, and good for you. You can do that. But I take 1956
I couldn't tell you what year it was.
Dude, wait till you're old. Shit starts to fall together. It's like, wait, when was that? Was Reagan president? Holy crap! No, that was the. This is where yeah.
It's like everybody's uncles like talking about 86. It's like, what do you mean? What do you like?
Oh, it's okay. I want to be alive.
How do you know that
years.
Was the year like?
Yeah, I want to be alive in 20 years when you start to do that, because it's gonna
like
happen.
What was so? I don't know. Really, like, I'm gonna be like, back in 16.
For real.
That's bullshit.
Yeah, you think so. That's all right, hon. I'll be there. I'm going to be an old fart in the corner somewhere going, told you.
All right, whatever.
It's all right. You know what? I think, but you know what? This is important. This is an important thing, too, because, again, because you're younger and you have not had 40 years of lived experience that you have to catalog in some way, right? The last time, so 40 years ago, I was 27. Okay? And I have had all this shit happen. How the hell do you organize that? It's like taking, it's like taking your degree again and going, what they saying? Was it finance class or was I taking geometry? No, I never took geometry. But So in order to organize all that stuff, you develop systems. And as you talk about mastery, you begin to develop systems. There's system 1 and system 2 thinking. I don't know if you're familiar with this sort of stuff. Again, I'll send you some stuff. It's pretty cool. System 1 thinking is the stuff you do automatically. System 2 thinking is the stuff you analyze.
Okay.
So if, let's say, I was in EMT for like 15 years, okay? There were some things that when I came out of EMT school, which was a hoot, I had to think of everything I did because there were skills I hadn't have enough practice in. By the time I was 5 years in, I had done them so many times that they were automatic. So that system 1 thinking is just stuff that's been installed in you. It's like the default system now.
Yeah.
And I know the implications of my actions. I know it's there in a blink. But when you encounter something new, you have to go through that system 2 thing where it's like, okay, why do I do this here? And, oh, right, they said if I do that, it'll explode. And what you have to go through it, and slowly it integrates. It becomes a part of you. It's crazy and wonderful.
That's interesting. So you're saying that your system 2 thinking of years of, it was in 67 or was in 72.
Yeah.
It's just a system now that has developed into an automatic way of thinking for you.
Exactly.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
That's so funny. I get that. So yeah, I'm sure then in 50 years that will be the system. That's the only way that I can organize the shit that happened in my life. But I kind of... That's so funny, though.
You haven't had this problem yet.
That's so funny. Yeah.
And that's where flow comes from as well.
Yeah. Because I guess when you're trying to recall back on like someone says, when was that? And then it's like flipping through like the Rolodex of memory.
Exactly right.
And it's like, oh shit, I guess you kind of do have to have a way of organizing that. And by year is probably the easiest way, like in your head. So.
It's also the common denominator. It's like, where were you when the Twin Towers fell?
Yeah.
I know where I was when Kennedy was shot.
Yeah, because it was like the same date for everybody.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you find anchor points in common in your life.
Yeah. That's funny. Now I understand old people a little bit more.
Yeah. we're in the filing cabinet and we're going, hang on, Sonny. It's going to take a while for me to find this one. Oh, that was cute. What was I looking for?
That's crazy. Yeah, I'm sure that you have to have a lot of systems to do what you're doing at this point. So painting and tangents and all this stuff, and we're just gonna fast forward to what you're doing today.
Okay.
Because we're gonna talk for 20 hours if we don't.
Oh my God, it's the truth.
So you are the head of the Motions Center for
Independent living.
What exactly is the Motions Center for Independent Living?
So I'm gonna go do a date thing. I am.
Cool. Back in
1970, I think it was 70, 71. There was the disability rights movement grew out of the civil rights movement, and back in 71, a bunch of folks occupied an administrative building in Berkeley for a bunch of things to happen that would sustain them, that would make their rights, excuse me, their right to a place in the community.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Do you want some water?
No, I'm good. Okay. So in the early 70s, those protests and those movements culminated in something called the Rehabilitation Act in 1976.
Okay.
That act was amended in 78 to establish what were called Centers for Independent Living.
Okay.
So that people with disabilities would have a common place to come for information, advocacy, to do peer support, to learn independent living skills. That's the hub.
I assume this is all the same time when like handicap accessible stuff was coming into play, or was that much later?
This is what gave rise to that. Right. So this is 78. Okay. The ADA.
So 78.
Yeah. So, and I'm trying to think of the date now. I think the ADA was 20 years later.
Mm-hmm.
The ADA didn't happen until the mid 90s. So the seed was the center. It was rehabilitation centers for independent living came to be.
Cool.
The one that I work at now has been in place since 1989.
Mm-hmm.
And what we do is we're supposed to work primarily with adults. Honestly, we work with kids too, because why not? We work with families, friends, allies in the community, educators, whomever that needs direction about disability services, helps folks with learning how to live an independent life, helps them to advocate for integration in the community. And it's any disability of any kind at any time in life, which is rare.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of disability services silo. It's like, this is for blind people, this is for people with MS, and this is for people who are under the age of 21 who have a developmental disability. This is for over 21. We don't care.
Damn. So you're really taking on the full spectrum here.
Yeah. And when I came to this agency, it was 6 people. They were getting a stipend from... A stipend, not really a stipend. It's a grant mandated by that legislation, by the Rehabilitation Act. There's a certain amount of money that comes to us that keeps the doors open, the lights on, and doesn't do much else.
Mm-hmm.
There's just not enough of it.
Mm-hmm.
I keep saying we're supposed to take care of everyone, everywhere, no matter what they need, and they give us enough money to run a Girl Scout troop. Cool.
This is where you come in.
And it's I have to give credit for, there was a person there. I have no background in nonprofit.
Okay.
0. I did work for nonprofits, but I did not run one.
So when did you start at Motions? What year?
So this was 2017.
Cool.
See, it's another year.
Yeah. No, it's just gonna be. That's what it is now.
Yep.
And then
time is not natural.
It's fine. Yeah. Weird. Yeah. So what were you doing right before Motions?
I was running a small social media company. I had been working for another nonprofit, and I
Yeah.
got Rift.
Okay. And then
Reduction in Fort.
got it.
So
Little
I
social
moved on
media
to
thing.
start doing social media marketing.
Cool.
And then I was hiring people to produce content.
Okay.
And it turned out that the people who were like the best were people with disabilities. They had education. They wanted to be engaged. They couldn't make a lot of money because they would lose their benefits. I didn't have a lot of money to pay them, and they were thrilled for the most part. Like any business, there were some who were great, some were not so great, but on the whole, it was a terrific investment. And one of them was on the board at Motions and was pestering me, going, come on, you have to join the board. You have to join the board. It's like I said, no, I have a business to run. Leave me alone. For about 18 months, she did that. And then I said, okay, fine. Sure. So I was inducted into the board.
That's so funny.
And then a week later, the executive director quit. Boom. And there's a thing called a succession plan.
Yeah.
That there was a succession plan. And the executive director quit, and the succession plan failed immediately. Right there. Next thing I know, the board chair is on the phone with me going, hey, are you ready for your next adventure?
Yeah.
And I said, no. I don't know anything about this stuff. I certainly don't know the finance part of it. Come on. Don't even think about this. But he convinced me that there was a CFO or somebody who was going to be taking care of that. And I would do this temporarily. 6 years later, I'm still there. He's gone.
Crushing
the CFO is gone.
Yeah.
I'm here.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is it for you. This is probably the
I am on
the final calling mission right
I
here.
am on a 2-year exit plan. I'm 2.5 years into a 3-year exit plan. So, 70 is about I don't want to work this hard at 70.
No.
I have another gig I teach EMTs. Actually, I develop curriculum for that.
Jesus, so much.
I'm an ADD person. I do 20 things at once.
Yeah. It's just funny. Over how many years, how many things you can end up doing. It's gonna be so fun.
Have you ever sat down? You're a person with ADD. Have you ever sat down and made a list of all the stuff you've done?
No.
It's a riot.
But now that you're thinking about it, I would though, when I was just angry all the time. And couldn't believe people were falling for college and not that I think that too much anymore, and couldn't believe I was just so pissed and wanted to do my own thing. I'd be I did this and this and this and this and what did you do? Go to the bar or something like that, and I would just be so mad. But I used to kind of think but I haven't thought about it in a while, and it's been a lot more stuff.
Yeah,
but that's funny. And then I'm only 24, so I can imagine how much stuff you've done.
So here's the thing. People look at me sometimes and I say all the things that I've done. They go, wow, that's amazing. And it's in my head, I'm going, no, hon, I just couldn't hold a job for very long.
That's how I felt. I was no, I just failed a bunch of times. It's fine.
And when you start to tell the stories in big expansive ways, it's I spent 15 years as an EMT. People think that's the only thing I was doing, so I must be, 112 years old. And it's no, I was doing that, and I was learning about social media, and I was, because I can't do
one thing.
I can't.
Yep.
And it's come to the point now where I know how to work with that. I know that I have to do 20 small things in a day. If there's something that has to be done, I work my way up to it, and then you can't break my focus.
Yeah, I think that's a huge problem with what happens now, putting people into molds of what they should do. Well, it's what's wrong with doing 20 small things in a day if that's what gets you through it? And by the end of life, is that are we all gonna complete the same amount of tasks if you did one thing for a couple of years? And then another thing for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And another thing. And if I did 10 things for 5 years and then 10 things for another 5 years, then
yeah, ultimately, and that kind of bean counting.
Yeah.
It's do you get to the same? It's a sort of industrialized model of thinking. It's what was your productivity like? Well, I tend to work in circles.
Yeah.
I walk around my house. I literally have things scattered around my house.
Yeah.
And as long as I am disciplined in that I continue to move, they all get done.
So I'm sure that's
That's the only
I'm
discipline
sure
I have
that
to
you're
have.
the perfect person for this job then for motions, because tell me what you do on a day-to-day basis, because like how many different types of people do you have to deal with probably?
Well, so at my level, I don't.
Mm.
I don't do direct services.
Mm-hmm.
This was a tough lesson for me.
Mm-hmm.
But I learned it long ago. If you're going to manage, that is a completely different job. And if you keep dipping back
Mm.
into direct services, you lose perspective on the things that really need your attention. That's why you're the manager.
Got it. So what do you do day to day as the manager for
So,
motions? A lot of
uh,
things, but
I mean, there's a lot of things.
yeah.
My working day starts at 6.
Yeah,
I'm at my desk by 6 a.m.
that's crazy.
Often I'm like at the gym. Well, I'm also old, so time shift happens.
Yeah.
I don't need as much sleep, and I go to bed early and wake up early.
Okay.
Um, but at 6 a.m., I try to do like an overview of the projects that I need to get done.
Uh-huh.
And I actually, for a long while, I went back to it recently. I make a project inventory. It's like 4 pages long, once a month, just to be sure that I have
Yeah.
everything done. And really, every day is different, but the things that are most consistent is that my admin calls me at 8:30.
Mm-hmm.
We go over the things that are in her head that we need to go over. She handles my calendar because time is not my friend.
Mm-hmm.
And I am more likely to screw up a calendar than I am to keep it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Seems like at that level you need somebody for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And then really it's a matter of I talk to all my department heads, often on, if not on a daily basis, then every 2 days or so tops.
Mm-hmm.
I have several projects, and each department has its own projects that I'm working on or
What
that
kind
I'm.
of projects are you working on right now?
So there's one called Neighbor Aid where we're going out to teach people who are already in a community organization how to make easy referrals.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you know somebody in your community is like short on rent, give them the number for this resource before they're getting kicked out.
Oh.
Stuff like that. And hey, listen, does your community need more information around this? You do the training. We'll back you up.
Hmm.
And so we're teaching that. We're doing an outreach to legislators right now. We did a whole thing on COVID vaccinations that's now turned into a more of a public health thing.
Yep.
With
I
flu
remember.
vaccinations, all that sort of stuff.
Remember.
Right. What else? Education and advocacy is doing that, and youth transition. I'm looking at apprenticeships and the bridge
Oh
between.
yeah. This is a cool thing. Talk about youth transition a little bit.
So youth transition is. I'm going to go back a little bit.
Okay.
One of the problems that nonprofits have very often is that if you get a project started
Mm-hmm.
and the funding goes away, the project goes away.
Mm-hmm.
So my feeling is, first of all, if people are going to be integrated into the community and go for competitive employment and have the life they want to have, has to start when they're young adults.
Yeah.
And so rather than just doing one project, what I wanted to do is 1, 2, 3 projects and grow something that would be supportive in a bunch of different ways. Right now, what we're doing.
Oh, just so it's not like all your eggs in one basket type of thing.
Well, right now,
Yeah.
so whatever eggs you got in that basket
Yeah,
are taken care of.
Yeah.
You learn how to advocate for yourself. One of the things I really want to get more about. But the point is that youth transition is right now we're doing pre-employment training.
Yeah.
And we've been fortunate enough over the last several years to have funding from the Department of Labor to give kids paid internships. These are kids, not kids with profound disabilities, but kids who tend to fall through the cracks because they have nominal disabilities.
It's a nominal disability.
Well, like ADD is not it's not somebody who's in a wheelchair with multiple disabilities and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Rather, it's someone who looks like they are, lazy or whatever. They just need a little bit of support. They need somebody to go, hey, listen, you're going to be great in the workplace. We're going to teach you what a paycheck is, how to be on time, what those silly things called taxes are and why that piece of paper is attached to your paycheck,
Mm-hmm.
How to interact with people, all that sort of stuff. And then what we want to be able to do is say, now that you learned all this, here's a place to have a job for the first time. No pressure. It's 6 weeks. You're going to get out of this, whatever you're going to get out of it, but you have your feet wet. So that internship piece has been really crucial for people with nominal disabilities who don't need a job coach.
What else? What kind of other disabilities are nominal disabilities?
There are people with mental health issues. I mean, mental health issues are a perfect example. It's like,
what other, like, kind of, is there anything else besides mental health issues?
I mean, there's lots. There's no end to human disability.
But like, just because I am not thinking of them. I don't live in that world. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, how do I put this? There are people who have some physical limitations. There are people who have perceptual limitations. People who have
being blind,
like being blind or deaf or whatever.
Okay.
There are people who have cognitive disabilities, so intellectual impairments and that sort of thing.
Yep.
And then people who have mental health challenges.
Yep.
So if you take anyone in those categories who could, get on a bus by themselves, or it's not a matter of type so much as it's a matter of degree.
Yeah.
So someone who
I do know a couple blind skaters.
Okay.
Shout out to ASF Vision, Anthony.
And I know a young man who has low vision who went to culinary school.
His friend has, I believe, I don't know if he's fully blind. He's probably legally fully blind, but he said he sees through a pinhole. Both of them showed up to the Long Branch skate park by themselves. They said they took an Uber to the skate park from Belmar. It's like 20 miles, or not 20 miles, it's like 10 miles, but still, it's a good distance, and it's like, it's funny, but those guys are probably exactly what you're talking about. They have the ability to get in an Uber and get around, but those are definitely full-on disabilities, and
absolutely,
they need help doing stuff.
They need some sort of an accommodation, but competitive employment, totally. With the right accommodations in place, this guy could be an accountant, and that guy could be a sculptor or whatever. The point is that with the right accommodations, one of the problems that we have as a society is that we see accommodation as an inconvenience or something that's being taken advantage of. Right? So when some folks go, well, how many accommodations do we need to make? And to me, it's like being a parent. You have that little kid.
You need to make all of them.
Right. How many times do I need to tell you not to do that? And the answer is as many as it takes.
Yeah.
As many as it takes.
Yeah. Because it is interesting, like, as much as it is, like, the most minor inconvenience for you to think of these things, and install, like, wheelchair ramps and accessibility, and then provide accommodations for people with nominal disabilities and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The value that those people bring, like what you were saying from the social media company, is sometimes like what
absolutely
it should be like.
And well, here's the
thing.
We have this really wild and I honestly think it has a dirty origin, but we have this really wild notion that people with disabilities are in some way broken and less valuable. And the reality is they're not broken, and their value can't be measured in how many dollars you put out to make sure that there's a curb cut.
Last time we spoke, you brought up such a cool point that I didn't know as a young person. And it was about language, and specifically the words. Like, I know everybody gets all offended about the word retard.
Oh, yeah, that is a big no.
Huge no. But I didn't know that idiot and moron were also medical terms that were used to isolate people with mental disabilities, nominal disabilities, outcast people, and create that separation that we now feel.
Yeah, it's woven into those words. Were used and still are used to categorize people. Eugenics is where a lot of this stuff comes from. What is it? Feeble-minded. One of my favorite words, because what does that mean? It means you have a weak mind.
And so as a person without a nominal disability,
Uh-huh.
it's easy to call someone an idiot, right?
Yeah.
When not like being mean, like you're some bully, but when just like you're on it and you're like you are and a couple people that you know, right, understand the same thing, and then the person that doesn't seems like they don't understand anything, right, in that moment. So it's easy as a young, like, right, I'm talking about like high school, middle school,
Sure.
like kids and stuff. But these words, oh, he's an idiot and stuff, have become so commonplace and so easy to use. But it's like they hit, like they still hit. You know what I mean?
Well, they're meant to be insulting.
Yeah.
You know, a person who has.
But it's funny when you learn where they're from. It's like, what? That's why they hit. Like, you know.
Absolutely. You know, you don't call your friend an idiot. You call your friend.
I do.
Well, okay, maybe. I don't know your friends.
My mom, sweetest lady, you'll find this so funny. Which is why, like, this is so fucked.
Yeah.
She'd be like the sweetest lady in the world. She helped so many people, but she grew up in suburban White Clawson, Michigan, with a crazy mother.
Oh.
And she was like, oh, like retard was just the word to throw around, right? And whatever. She would be like, call me a retard. Like, oh, don't be a retard. Like, oh, it's okay. Like, oh, I'm like, okay, mom, I won't be a retard. Like, terrible. Terrible. And it's like, I grow up and it's like, oh my God, like you learn what these things are actually, and like, you know what I mean? It's just...
See, this is where like the whole business about political correctness and wokeness and all this sort of stuff, it's like, I'm going to tie this right back with our mastery discussion, because here's the thing. In the 50s, when I was a little kid, right, in the 60s, all those words and words about race were commonly used.
Yeah.
Right? And as we come to achieve, as a society, we come to achieve a certain level of mastery in terms of our willingness to accept people as they are. Those words are no longer acceptable.
Yeah.
So as we rise, it's not that we're, you know, woke or the politically correct police are coming. You know, I understand that this is irritating to people.
Me too.
But
that's why it's necessary to talk about.
Yeah, the fact that we are now understanding that, hey, listen, the guy in the wheelchair, he's not, the R word does not apply to him.
No.
He's a human being.
Yeah.
And he has a lot to contribute. And if you let him contribute it, if you open your eyes, shut your mouth, and pay attention to who he is and what he has to offer.
Yeah. And it just becomes, the more you master yourself and the more you bring that, like, I don't know, you know, love, life, you know, just oneness of everything, and start to really like connect and understand, like put all of like the political correctness of like the R word and moron and idiot aside. It's just unacceptable to call someone that if you're going to master yourself for any reason, whether it is, oh, it was a medical term, or it's just straight hurtful.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It's like just unacceptable to isolate someone with a word in that way at all if you want to master yourself.
Yeah, and if you come to the realization that I get pissed at people.
Yeah.
I want to feel superior to people.
Yeah.
I want to stop people from doing things that I don't want them to do, whether it's
my friends are going to hear this and be like, you've said the craziest shit. Trying not to any longer.
Yeah. And the challenge there is, you know, here's that system 2 thinking. You're going to have to think about it a lot. And then one day it'll just flow out of your mouth, and you'll realize, oh, when I was a little girl, this is awful. When I was a little girl, you know, the little children's rhyme, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, it wasn't a tiger.
No, oh.
Right?
Oh,
and I thought it was nothing.
Shit.
No, I was taught, I mean, like knee high to nothing.
No way.
And all my friends said the same thing until one day my mother said, that's not a polite word. Now, I'm old enough to remember.
Not a polite word. Oh my God.
Yeah, and I believe she explained to me what it meant,
wow.
But it didn't dawn on me that there were people who were being beaten and murdered, and that word put them in harm's way and made them less. It didn't even dawn on me.
Yeah. No, yeah.
So yeah, we evolve.
Yeah. And learn the lesson the hard way.
Yeah, I wouldn't think of saying it. I think I've said it once just to get somebody's goat for a bunch of reasons, but I haven't said it in years and wouldn't.
Yeah. Shout out Alder Wilson for making me a better person.
Yeah.
He's one of my skater friends. The first one to like really be like, hey, you can't say retard.
Ah, good.
And I was like, I think you're just soft. And like then over like him, I would like say it, and I would see Alder, and then I would know like it wasn't okay. And then I'd be like, damn it, I let down Alder because he's just like the best guy. And he was like, now I think of it, and in my head the change is being made to ridiculous.
Yeah.
So it's like like whatever. So
yeah.
Just we're trying to swap words here. We're trying to make things better.
Yep.
But cool. Think you gotta go, huh?
Yeah, I do. Time flies when you're having fun, right?
You're having fun. Judyth Brown, head of Motion Center for Independent Living.
Yep.
This has been the first recording for Our Eyes Only. And
I keep forgetting the camera's there. Hi.
And hopefully it all actually got recorded.
Yeah. Little green lines are going up and down, so I suppose.